The summer of 1940 hung heavy with dread across Europe. Nazi Germany, having crushed Poland, Denmark, Norway, the Low Countries, and France in a lightning storm of steel and fire, now turned its gaze across the narrow waters of the English Channel. Britain stood alone, battered yet unbroken, its people waiting for the blow that would decide the fate of the free world. The battle for Britain was not just another clash in a global war, it was a fight for survival, for democracy, and for the spirit of resistance itself. When France fell in June 1940, Adolf Hitler assumed Britain would sue for peace. He believed the island nation would accept German dominance of Europe rather than face destruction. But Winston Churchill, Britain's newly appointed Prime Minister, thundered in Parliament, "We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall never surrender." Those words carried not just defiance, but the grim recognition that Britain now stood as the last major power between Hitler and his dreams of European hegemony. Geography became destiny. The English Channel, scarcely 20 miles wide at its narrowest, was the last natural barrier to invasion. Hitler ordered preparations for Operation Sea, lioned the planned invasion of Britain, but knew it could not succeed without air superiority. Thus, the Luftwaffe, commanded by Hermann Göring, would first need to annihilate the Royal Air Force. Only then could German troops attempt a crossing. For Britain, everything depended on its few. The fighter pilots of the RAF. Britain's defenses were formidable but stretched thin. The country had built up a radar network known as Chainhome, the first of its kind in the world. These towers scanned the skies and gave early warning of incoming raids, allowing fighter squadrons to scramble with precious minutes to spare. Airfields dotted the southern coast, housing squadrons of Hawker Hurricanes and the sleeker, faster Supermarine Spitfire. These machines, manned by young pilots, many barely out of their teens, were Britain's shield. Yet they were heavily outnumbered. The Luftwaffe could muster nearly 2,500 aircraft. The RAF barely half that number. Churchill himself admitted the odds were great. Our margins small, the stakes infinite. The battle began in earnest in July 1940. The Luftwaffe launched raids on shipping in the Channel, probing Britain's defenses. Dogfights erupted over the water as Spitfires and Hurricanes clashed with Messerschmitt Bf 109s. Both sides tested each other, but this was only the beginning. In August, Göring escalated to a Dlarengrafiegel attack, the full-scale attempt to destroy the RAF, day after day. Waves of bombers, escorted by fighters, roared over the coast. Airfields, radar stations, and aircraft factories became prime targets. The skies above Kent, Sussex, and Surrey thundered with the roar of engines and the crack of machine guns. The young RAF pilots endured a relentless pace, often flying multiple sorties a day. Many knew their survival chances dwindled with each mission. The attrition was brutal. One German ace recalled, "You could see them coming, but they never turned away." Courage, however, was not enough. Aircraft losses mounted, and at times it seemed the RAF might buckle under the strain. Yet radar and efficient command structures gave Britain an edge. Fighter Command, led by Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding, directed squadrons with precision, sending them exactly where needed. It was a revolution in air warfare. By late August, the Luftwaffe intensified its assault. Airfields in southern England were pounded, some reduced to rubble. Pilots were killed on the ground, and mechanics worked desperately to keep planes flying. At times, Britain came within weeks, perhaps even days of collapse. In the words of one RAF officer, we were at the end of our tether. Another fortnight, and we might have gone. But then came a crucial turning point. On August 24th, German bombers accidentally dropped bombs on central London. Churchill ordered immediate retaliation, a bombing raid on Berlin. The attack caused little damage, but enraged Hitler. He ordered Göring to shift the Luftwaffe's focus from RAF airfields to bombing London itself. This proved a strategic blunder. While London suffered terribly, the Blitz would claim tens of thousands of civilian lives. It gave the RAF precious time to repair its airfields and recover. The German strategy shifted from strangling the RAF to terrorizing the British people. Instead of breaking their will, it steeled their resolve. September 15th, 1940, marked the climax of the battle. The Luftwaffe launched massive raids, sending hundreds of bombers toward London. The RAF threw everything into the fight. Squadrons scrambled repeatedly, engaging wave after wave. Civilians below watched dogfights unfold in the clear blue skies. One observer recalled, "Never in my life had I seen such a sight, dozens of planes, weaving, diving, spitting fire." By the day's end, the Luftwaffe had suffered crippling losses. Göring promised Hitler the RAF would be destroyed in 4 weeks. Instead, his own forces bled heavily. That night, Churchill told the nation that Britain had witnessed a decisive day in its history. By October, the Luftwaffe abandoned daylight raids and switched to night bombing, signaling the failure of their campaign to win air superiority. Operation Sea Lion was indefinitely postponed. Britain had survived. In Churchill's immortal words, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few." The few were not just British, but also Poles, Czechs, Canadians, Australians, New Zealanders, and others who flocked to Britain's defence. Their sacrifice ensured that the island fortress held firm. The aftermath of the battle was grim yet triumphant. London and other cities endured months of bombing during the Blitz, with families huddling in underground shelters while the city above burned. Yet the survival of the RAF meant Britain remained in the war. It gave the Allies a foothold from which the eventual liberation of Europe could be launched. Had the Luftwaffe succeeded, Hitler might have forced Britain to surrender, reshaping the world in unimaginable ways. The legacy of the battle for Britain endures as one of history's great turning points. It was the first major defeat of Nazi Germany, shattering the myth of their invincibility. It demonstrated that modern air power could decide the fate of nations. Above all, it proved that resolve, technology, and leadership could overcome overwhelming odds. The pilots who fought some of whom never lived to see victory became legends. Their names are etched into memorials, their faces captured in photographs, their deeds remembered in the stories of a grateful nation. Today, when we recall the summer of 1940, we remember more than just battles in the sky. We remember the courage of ordinary citizens, firefighters, battling blazes, families enduring blackouts, children evacuated from cities, and volunteers watching the skies with searchlights. We remember a time when the future of freedom balanced on a knife's edge, and a handful of determined men and women held the line. The battle for Britain remains not just a story of war, but a story of resilience, unity, and defiance. This documentary was created with immense effort to bring history alive, to honor those who lived through it, and to ensure their story is never forgotten. If you believe in the importance of preserving history with depth, care, and truth, support this work so that we can continue telling the stories that shaped our world.